Hello, Mrs. F1.
Hello, Mr. F1. I almost forgot your name there for a real hot second.
That's rude.
I apologize. We have got a jam-packed show for y'all. Y'all,
do.
where am I from? Texas? What is this? Lots of things to talk about. But first of all, I feel like we need to take a moment for Max Verstappen. Because I saw clips yesterday.
He's probably still mad.
If you don't know, Max Verstappen was competing in the Le Mans 24-hour virtual race.
Right.
We all know in this virtual world, us being podcasters, things can go wrong. Technology can fail you.
Yes.
And technology failed Max Verstappen yesterday, and Angry Max came out.
Yep.
He really did. He was very upset.
Yeah, it was like Max at whichever track that Lewis, or he parked his car on top of Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
He was that mad.
He was that mad.
At a video game.
You know when, like, your 60-year-old dad is trying to figure out how to, like, send an email or use the internet? That was Max Verstappen yesterday.
That's a perfect explanation of what it was. Yes.
It really was. So the program that they were running this, like, virtual Le Mans on kept quitting and dying on him. And he was just sitting there. And I quote, "I think I'm going to uninstall this at the end. Maybe clear up some room on my PC."
And didn't he say he was going to tell everyone else to uninstall it as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he called the event a clown show.
Similar to him not letting Checo pass.
Yeah. It was Angry Radio Max. It was kind of funny to watch, but also I was like, ooh, dude, like he's alone in his room making these comments. And I'm like, he has just destroyed this event for all eternity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll never be popular again unless they decide to switch it to a new software or, a new racing software.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, he eviscerated it, and it might struggle to ever exist.
If Max has anything to do with it, I think this is going to be like his personal...
he might pay people to destroy the software.
His personal vendetta.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because this was an event that was getting really, really hyped up. Even we saw the president of the FIA promoting it on his own Twitter. And I think that's probably why they had a lot of the problems that they did, because a lot more people came to watch online than expected. Apparently their servers kept crashing, which was causing the game to crash. Max was actually in first place in Le Mans when his computer crashed. When he got back online and rejoined the race, this is also part of it where I'm like, how does this work? Because it's virtual. It's not a real race. When he was able to rejoin, he was in P17, was able to work his way back up to P14, but then his team was like, we're not going to win. What's the point of this? And they retired virtually. Oh my gosh.
Virtually.
Yeah. Retired their car. So, real bummer for that event. And I don't think Max Verstappen will be competing next year. Actually, he said he won't be competing next year.
I would go ahead and put money that he won't be there next year.
Yeah. So bummer for that. And Max, we've all had our technical difficulties and troubles. We feel you, dude. It sucks, but
everyone knows what it's like when technology doesn't work for you.
Right. Except
frustrating.
Except when I get mad at Microsoft Teams, I'm not going to possibly be the end of Microsoft Teams with my comments, but Max Verstappen can end certain things with his own comments.
Yep.
So sad day for virtual Le Mans.
Sure. I know something that we want to talk about. I have some conversation. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Okay, conversation corner. Go ahead. You start.
Conversation street.
I'm going to drink my
wine. To those
wine.
Grand Tour fans out there, I don't know if that's like copyrighted, but I don't care either. So I have some conversation. Okay. I heard that Fred Vasseur is going to start firing some Ferrari strategists.
Oh, I hear the angels singing.
To all of the fans out there that listen to us, they'll know how happy I am about that, because I have eviscerated Ferrari strategists in the past, and this is the only decision, and I am all for it. I love to hear that heads are rolling.
I mean, yes, there have been rumors going around. This was Fred Vasseur's first official week. And he was apparently meeting with all the departments and department heads. And yes, there are rumors flying that people are getting the boot, and specifically people at the top of the strategy department. This is good news. I think not just the strategy department, but I think other departments as well within Ferrari are going to need a big change if that team is really going to turn the corner.
Yep.
And reach their full potential. So this is exciting. I'm happy to hear this.
Yeah, it's any successful business. You need to cut the fat, right? You need to get rid of the people who aren't producing, and it was evident that yes, some drivers made mistakes at some point last year, but it was evident that strategy had cost the team over and over and over again. And for some reason, Mattia just kept siding with strategy. And it's like, you can't beat your head against the wall over and over and over again and expect, to finally put your head through the wall. Like, no, it's not going to work. And it seems like Vasseur actually is, kind of recognizing that things need to change. And, and I guess it is kind of tough for him to know who's at fault for what strategy decision, since he wasn't in the building when all those terrible mistakes were made last year. But I'm sure there are certain people who know, this person made this mistake, this person made that mistake. And, to me, it seems a little premature just because I just don't know how Fred Vasseur can be sure who did what. But either way, there are people that need to go there very clearly, and he seems to be willing to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've seen this from working in sports myself and seeing new leadership come in and take over. And they really do, and this isn't just in sports, but almost in any workplace, you really do have to come in and kind of play detective. You have to figure out, all right, what's going on? Who's telling me the truth about what's going on? And how can I start to make changes and fix it? And I think that's what he's doing. Now, yeah, Fred Vasseur obviously wasn't on the Ferrari team last year. And he wasn't super close to all of the things going on in that team. But he's not foreign to Ferrari. Mm-hmm. He's also not foreign to Charles Leclerc. Mm-hmm. And I think he has probably taken a lot of time to gather the stories and figure out what's the truth. I mean, you don't have to be in the Ferrari team to know that strategy needed to change.
Right. And I'll bet you Carlos and Charles have a very, very good idea of who was at fault for those strategy decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's not like they would... I mean, maybe they would rat certain people out they don't like. I doubt it. But I could see how, like, the strategy room could be pointing fingers at each other, whereas, whenever Ferrari made a terrible decision, they'd go into the room, they'd debrief. Charles and Carlos are fully aware of who made what mistake.
Oh, absolutely.
I am sure that was probably his kind of, interviewing those two people and saying, like, hey, who here is not holding their weight?
Yeah, absolutely. And like Charles and Carlos they want to win. That is their end game. So I don't think they'd be throwing out false narratives to protect anybody, because really they're there for themselves at the end of the day. And Charles Leclerc and Fred Vasseur have a very good relationship. Mm-hmm. I really hope this is happening. I hope we see real confirmations of the movements of some of these people, because like I said, I think it's going to be the only way Ferrari's going to be able to turn that corner and start cashing in on the talent and the car that they have in that garage at the moment. So we'll see if those are true or not. But
I hope they are.
Something that is true. And it's so funny because I have it in my notes that I wrote down the beginning of this week to talk about this weekend, was Williams doesn't have a team principal and their car launch is coming up shortly. Is this bad news? Well, that question.
Both of those questions.
Williams, this is James.
Yes, that's right.
Williams announced their new team principal, and he is none other than the iconic voice on the radio, James from Mercedes.
That's right. Yeah. Valtteri's probably, got PTSD from hearing that name, but yeah, James got a promotion. Good for him. It seems that Mercedes were sad to see him go, but also felt that he earned the right to take that position. So good for him.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a little bit of a surprising decision from Williams to take on James. James has obviously never been a team principal. and that team is slowly climbing their way back to being competitive at the bottom of the grid. So to me, in my eyes, I would think Dorilton would want to hire somebody with experience of doing that. But as we've seen in the past, the people they have brought on who have had experience doing those things have not brought them any success.
Yep.
So it doesn't surprise me, even though he's not been a team principal, he has endured a lot of success, not just with Mercedes, but in his past career in Formula One as well. So it's exciting. I think we're seeing Williams kind of start to take a little bit more chances when it comes to who they're bringing into that team. And I really hope, for like the sake of him, obviously, but that team, that they can really turn it around. I think he'll work well within that team with Alex and with
Don't you dare forget
oh
who
my
the
God.
second driver is.
No, I know who it is. It's Logan. Oh my God.
Oh.
I'm sorry. It's the end of the day. We had visitors for the past 3 days. I've had a sip of wine and no food. So it's just a bad combination.
Yeah, well, on the James front, I think we should avoid saying that somebody who hasn't had the team principal position as inexperienced. I think when you have that outlook, you kind of get the old man's club that some of the other sports has.
Right,
when it's like, oh, you can only hire someone who already had this job before. I think that can be very dangerous. I think James is a very experienced. I know James is a very experienced person in the F1 world. He's been around for a while. He's very well respected at Mercedes. So I don't think that I've read articles saying that he's quote unquote inexperienced. I just find that that's a flawed way of thinking, and that's how you kind of breed those, like I said, the old man's game where, it's the same people over and over and over again. And clearly, people like Cyril and other, team principals that have kind of gone in and out, I think teams have kind of realized just because you were a team principal before doesn't make you very good. That's why Cyril hasn't really been picked up by any F1 teams, and I don't think he should. I really think that you should look at these people who, for example, I mean, it's a shame to say now since Mattia got fired, but Mattia kind of worked his way up in the Ferrari world, as a mechanic and kind of, worked all the way up to the top.
Yeah, he was engineering, I believe,
exactly.
before he got the team principal role.
Right. So, I think we should kind of give weight to people who do work their way up and kind of develop those skills, and they just learn more and more about the different facets of F1. I'm sure there's going to be a learning curve for anyone who doesn't officially hold a team principal job to learn all the ins and outs, but I think it's a good hire, and I think it is dangerous for us to just say, oh, he's inexperienced because he's never had that title before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just because you've had experience doesn't mean you'll bring success. I think hiring someone with experience is a safe bet. And I think the reason why I say I was surprised that they brought James on, just because of the critical moment that team is at in their legacy. They've had very slow and steady success, I would say, the past 2 years.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's kind of like a little bit of a make or break moment, I feel like, for them in 2023. It's like, okay, we got new owners, we got a new team principal, we got some new drivers in here. I think 2023 for them is the year they need to really produce.
Especially with cost cap kind of leveling the cars out, and the new generation of car kind of standardizing things. Not to beat a dead horse, but, yes, James is, quote unquote, inexperienced as a team principal, but I think he'll do well, learning what he's learned at Mercedes. Yeah,
we wish him the best, and it is exciting news. And I know I'm excited to see it. We'll have a new driver at that team, which is already exciting. Now we have a new team principal, and it'll be exciting to see like him grow in that team principal role as well. I mean, he has worked with Toto Wolff for how long now? Like that is, if you're trying to find the perfect mentor to be a
Right.
team principal.
Yeah.
There's
There's not many better people.
it's that
than
guy.
learning under Toto. Yep.
Exactly. So he's definitely got good role models. But yeah, exciting news from Williams. Thank God. I'm happy for them because it was making me a little worried that they didn't have a team principal.
Yeah, it did take them quite a bit to announce.
Yeah, it was a little scary. But maybe, contracts, whatever, who knows. Maybe they've noticed James literally since like the day Yost said I'm out.
Right.
But we have no idea. There is one more team on the grid, though, yet that is still missing its team principal.
Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo.
You can't just say Alfa. I keep forgetting that.
I know.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wait, Romeo or Toro?
Yeah,
Alpha Tauri. Oh, my God.
Right.
Is the 2 sips of wine in, and I can't even pronounce the names. Yeah, so who do you think? Or do you think they'll take the road of Williams as bringing in someone new and fresh to the role? Or do you think they're going to stick with someone with some success?
I honestly don't know. I would hope they promote from within, but maybe they do go outside. Maybe they look at Mattia. I mean, I think that would be a bit disappointing.
Oh, wait. I need to interrupt you on this because that's actually not even possible.
It isn't?
It is not, because Mattia Binotto has signed an agreement with Ferrari that he will basically not work for any other team for a year.
Whoa.
He's being paid by Ferrari.
Yeah.
Think of it as like a sabbatical.
It's a non-compete. That's
yeah,
what it
it's
is.
basically a non-compete. So he can't, and I believe it's only for a year, which Ferrari, look at them with their smart strategy. Their maybe
What a shock.
Let's take their HR department
and have them do their F1 strategy.
do their strategy. It would be, obviously they're making smarter strategies on the HR side of things
amazing.
for the team. But yeah, he's, as far as I know, has signed a 1-year non-compete.
I see. Okay.
So he's living
not possible.
life large on a Ferrari paycheck without lifting a finger.
Sure.
I think that was smart for him to do. Obviously, he's probably exhausted, to be honest with you. So he's like, oh, you're going to pay me for a year and I can just like watch this at home?
Right.
Done.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah. So not even possible for Alfa Romeo to pick him up.
Alrighty.
So who's left?
Like I said, promote from within. I know Aston Martin, when they took Mike Crack, he was out of motorcycle or MotoGP or something like that. I don't know where they got him from, but he was pretty well renowned in the F1 world, even though he wasn't technically in the F1 world. I'd like to see them do something similar. They've had success last year. I think Zhou has shown huge improvement. Valtteri, I mean, we all love Valtteri. He had a great year last year, and he's just a man.
Yeah, I literally talked about how he's slowly growing on me as like an individual.
Yes. So, we all want to see that team do well, and it is kind of cutting it to the wire that they're not announcing. And for all we know, they have somebody lined up. It's a contract thing, kind of like Williams, but it does seem to be a bit urgent to get somebody on the helm now.
Yeah, I mean, literally car launches are a month away at this point for a lot of teams. I think. Yeah, this is a little unusual when it comes to not naming a team principal. It's very unusual not to have a team principal before you launch your car. So I wonder what's going on there. I think it'll be important for them. Obviously, hiring any team principal is very important. But that team showed some really great potential last year. Okay, something that I learned this week that I thought was very interesting, and I just want to get your take on it.
Sure.
So for those of you that don't know, next year in the 2023 season, F1 will be integrating or including a RQF, which is a revised qualifying format. Okay. Think of it as like testing something out, like we have been doing with the sprint races.
Sure.
Remember when they first introduced this. So this is what they're going to integrate in. And this says, this will see tire compounds mandated for each stage of F1's usual 3-part qualifying session. Hard tires for all teams will be used in Q1. Medium tires for all teams will be used in Q2. And finally, soft tires will be used for all teams participating in Q3. This is interesting. So basically, obviously, for how long now you've been able to pick your tire strategy when it came to, what tire you want to start on Q1 versus Q2, Q3. Now F1's for 2 qualifying sessions for 2 races this year. They're going to mandate this new
hard for
medium,
Q1,
soft.
medium for Q2, soft for Q3.
Right. So everyone will be on the same tire at the same time. 2 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they're doing this? Do you think it's really going to make a difference?
Okay, let's do why first. In my opinion, it makes sense to kind of award the car that is most versatile, right?
Okay.
If you can succeed on a hard tire and get into Q2, that helps, maybe some of the cars that are set up more for, kind of like a full race as opposed to 1 lap speed. That's we'll get to that later, but yeah, that setup, that versatility that a car can have should be merited, and it seems like it will be with this new system. Now I know there are issues with, sometimes Pirelli picks the wrong compounds, and the hard tire might be way too hard for a weekend. And maybe if they choose to do this system on one of those weekends, then Q1 might just be full of crashes. And that will be bad,
and
obviously.
The weather really affects this as well.
Well, clearly they didn't announce what races because you can't predict the weather.
Oh, good point.
They will make, my guess is they will make the decision the week before or leading up when they can see the weather of a certain race is sunny and fine.
Makes sense.
No precipitation. Okay, let's pick this race to do this RQF, whatever As for the second question you had, will it make a difference? In my opinion, not in the least bit.
Okay.
I don't see how, even if you're kind of meriting a car for a race setup as opposed to a 1 lap setup, maybe that'll get you out of Q1. But at the end of the day, once you get to the medium tires and the soft tires, it's the same thing. Everybody's on the soft tire in Q3 anyways, right? Unless it's too sticky of a tire. And like I said, Pirelli chose the wrong tires for a weekend, whatever. And if that's the case, then we could have even more issues, where tire deg is insane. And I'm also kind of now just thinking, what is Pirelli going to do about tire allotment, especially on the weekends where they're mandating this tire, that tire for, will they change that? How does that work? Is it going to be on fresh? Can you use used soft tires for the Q3 and maybe that's beneficial on certain tracks? There's a lot of variables in this. It'll be interesting, I think, to see how it turns out, but I can't imagine it'll change the outcome of qualification.
So I have an answer to that. How many tires can they use in a weekend question? They do say in this little notice here, each driver may use no more than 11 sets of dry weather tires, 4 sets of intermediate tires, and 3 sets of wet tires.
Okay.
This compares to the normal weekend allowance of 13 sets of dry weather tires, 4 sets of intermediate tires, and 3 sets of wet weather tires. So to me, this whole thing, interesting to see them, they've kind of been messing around with ways that they can make F1 more exciting and give some of these teams that are dragging at the bottom or the midfield more of a chance to maybe get up to the front of the field for the race day.
Yep.
So we've seen that happening with the sprints.
Well, I want to ask you, sorry to interrupt, but what do you think of the RQF? Do you think it'll make a difference? Do you think, what do you think will happen?
Right. That's actually kind of what I was getting to is I think we're seeing two things going on here. They're seeing if they can make things a little bit more exciting when it comes to the race and the unpredictability of it. Second, they're trying to find another way to quote unquote level this playing field. Obviously, we know in F1, strategy plays a huge role in your success. You could have the fastest car on the track, but if you have crap strategy, it doesn't matter. You could lose the whole race. Ferrari is a perfect example of that last year. And I think they're trying to see, okay, qualifying, if we put them all on the same tire, will this guarantee that the best car will, in fact, be P1? I don't know if it's really going to change anything necessarily, because we do often see most of the teams taking the same tire strategies in qualifying already anyways. The only time we don't is when we see teams just trying to outsmart each other, or, throw a wrench in someone's plans to try and maybe, get ahead. So it's interesting, though, to see that they're messing around with qualifying even more than they already have with the sprint. We'll see. It's only 2 races. They haven't named the races like you mentioned, so I assume they will be tracks that are relatively predictable when it comes to tire maintenance. But I think it could get interesting if they pick a track where, as we see multiple times throughout the season, weather is not what it's expected to be. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's too rainy, and the tires that were supposed to be the best compound are not the best compound. So I think that's where we could see some interesting things happen. But I guess it's just something, as a fan, it's just something else to look forward to.
And I think I find it actually really smart that the FIA and F1 are, kind of doing these experimental, tests, experiments, whatever, with the sprint race. And I think, in my opinion, the sprint race is a success. Mm-hmm. I find them interesting.
When it's at the right track.
I wish drivers would be a little less conservative and, maybe weight the sprint races with more points to kind of entice the drivers to, hey, we can't just be conservative and just drive in a straight line. That's what I would do. I think if you really weight those, almost to the same points scoring as a full race, I think we'd see a lot more daring moves, and I think it'd be a lot more exciting. And it's, bite size, right? It's 45 minutes or whatever instead of however long a feature race is. Mm-hmm. But I do like that F1 is willing to test these things. And I think this is just something that the FIA is kind of open to, because anyone who's a Formula E fan out there, they know that Formula E has been experimenting, I think starting last year, with this qualifying duels, which are awesome to those who don't watch Formula E.
They're so fun to watch.
I love it. It basically, if you finish in the top 8 of Q1, the equivalency of Q1, it's kind of there's 2 sections of qualifying. If you finish in the top 4 of each section of qualifying, then you go into the duels. And
it's just like playoffs. Think of it as playoffs for the NFL.
It's one-on-one, which is awesome, right? They release one car first, the second car 10 seconds behind, and whoever sets the fastest 1 lap time wins that duel. You move on in a bracket strategy, just like, the American fans out there, the NCAA, how that works. I love it. I think it's very exciting, and I love that they're willing to just try these radical, unique things to develop and increase interest in the sport. And I would love to see if F1 would ever want to test this duels thing. I think it'd be so exciting. But just anyway, in that vein, I think FIA is really good at kind of thinking outside the box and developing these new ways of doing things, and this is a little bit less so with the tire strategy, but who knows, maybe it really does make a difference, and maybe the Red Bull can't drive on a hard tire one weekend and they're out in Q1, and that's very exciting for the fans, right? That things get shaken up and now Max has to pass 13 people to get a victory. So we'll see how it works out, but I'm all for FIA and F1 just continuing to test these unique experiments.
Yeah, I think it's F1. It's not necessarily the FIA. I obviously have to run things by the FIA to make sure they're legal and approved, but it's really F1 taking the initiative to say, okay, we've been doing things this way for so long. Maybe it's time to change things up and try something new, which I like. If F1 does the duel thing, I really am going to advocate for it being called Fight to the Death. Okay, not duels. Duels is cool and all, but that's Formula E. Let's call it Fight to the Death. But yeah, it's exciting. it's interesting to see. I'm happy to see at least that the sport is becoming aware that they need to evolve, which is interesting that they're doing it now, because I would say out of the past 10 years, F1's seeing their biggest hike in popularity in the past 3 to 4 years. So it's interesting that they're trying these things now when like the fans are pouring in without doing it. But maybe that's why they're doing it as well, so they don't lose those fans. So, speaking of fan influx, Netflix, they announced Drive to Survive. It's coming out, and
Season 5.
Season 5, and it's coming out earlier than I thought. Usually they launch it in March. It's coming out in February.
Is it February?
Yes, it's coming out in February. I mean, we watched last season. We watched all the seasons. And I think there are so many new fans that this is how they got into this sport.
Mm-hmm.
We're all cooped up in COVID. It was on Netflix, and it just like captivated so many people. Last year, I think it's safe to say both of us were a little not impressed.
Yeah, no, I'm not afraid to say I was disappointed by last year's Drive to Survive. Didn't think it was that great.
Yeah, I didn't think it was amazing. But
I do know that Max is back this year.
Yes, Max is
That's
now,
a pretty big deal.
He is participating in Drive to Survive, which is great. And I'm happy to see, because obviously he's won the last 2 championships.
Yeah, they should be interviewing the winner of the last 2 championships.
And I also think Max has come to his senses that, like, in order to survive as a generational talent and to stick with this new generation of fans, he needs to do more than just win championships and drive great. He needs to appeal to them on a human level. Let's be real. Max Verstappen didn't have the best PR year of his life in 2022.
No.
Yeah, and like the fact that he's also attached to Kelly Piquet and Nelson Piquet,
That's not his fault.
Yeah, but he's attached to them, and Nelson Piquet has not had a good PR year. I mean, actually, when has Nelson Piquet ever had a good PR year?
He's just not a great dude in general.
He's not the best human.
No.
So that didn't help. What do you think? What are you looking forward to in season 5? And, you know, what are just your thoughts on this overall?
I hope that, you know, what a lot of the fans kind of complain about is the exaggerated rivalries and such. Mm-hmm. I hope they get rid of that. I understand there needs to be some sort of drama in order to appeal to, you know, especially Americans who just love drama. But, you know, a lot of people in general, they like the drama. To me, the drama between, like, Toto and Christian Horner, that's, like, enough to make a show in and of itself. Those guys are ridiculous.
Christian Horner literally lives off of it.
He thrives off of
feeds off of getting underneath Toto Wolff's
exactly.
skin.
That, to me, like, they don't need to make anything up. They don't need to exaggerate anything to make that rivalry look any crazier than it already does, right?
Yeah.
So I hope they don't, you know, kind of make this Valtteri Zhou rivalry that we know doesn't exist, or, you know, something like that to try and fill episodes. But I am hopeful that now that Max is in, and I'm hoping that he's got, you know, kind of a level head on his shoulders, and I'm hopeful that they've asked him some tough questions about Brazil, Mexico. Which one was it where he didn't let Checo pass?
That was
Brazil, I think. Brazil.
It was Brazil.
I hope they asked him some tough questions about that, because I'd be really interested to see what that is, or what his answers are, right?
Right.
And, you know, among other things, there was, the crash. I'm sure there's going to be the Zhou crash is going to be a full episode, because that was horrifying and scary.
That was insane.
So, you know, I'm hopeful that it'll be a bit better than last year. I think they kind of had to, since Max wasn't involved,
invent some storylines.
It was tough for them, because there was such a great storyline the previous year between Lewis and Max. But when you can only interview one of them, like, you can't make it interesting. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, like, maybe the 2021 season was just a tad lacking for them. And that's, I very much felt...
Well, not in drama, but for them, to be able to fill that drama, right? With the vacancy of Max not being there.
Right. Like we had the kind of over exaggerated Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris situation. I do believe there is a tad truth to some of that when it comes to kind of Lando marking his territory a bit.
I think there's always a rivalry between two drivers, but I think they blew up the seriousness of that rivalry.
Oh, absolutely. They made it more than it actually was. But I think from what I saw in the trailer, they're really going to focus on kind of this new generation of car and how that's playing a role in the season. Obviously, Max coming back, I think they're going to focus a lot on that. And as they should, he won the championship. He was leading almost the entire season. But I remember so many times during the season, people were like on Twitter or TikTok and something would happen just within the F1 world. And they'd be like, oh my God, Netflix is like foaming at the mouth right now.
Right. Let's see how they converted that fodder into entertainment.
Right. And it's interesting. Well, I always do like watching the new Drive to Survive because it always comes out a little bit before the season starts. And it is a nice way to kind of go back in time and remind yourself. Like, I know, there are some super fans out there that can literally remember every single race, everything that happened down to like the lap. And I'm just sorry, I'm just not that person. My mind can't keep all that information. So it is nice to go back and see some of those big moments and be like, oh, right, I forgot that happened in Austria. Or it's just a nice little refresher before the season starts. And that's kind of how I look at it as.
No, I agree. It does recap last season well, for all the drama that it might kind of create, whatever that means. It does recap exactly what happened last season. And, that's valuable information for what's coming into the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to watching it. Looking forward to seeing how they have interpreted last year's things. I remember watching the last season, though, and remembering specifically, like, what the heck? Like, I remember X, Y, and Z happening, and they didn't mention it at all.
I know.
I was like, what is this? How can you leave that out of the story? But they do. I get it. You can't include everything. It's a long season, but... Come on, Netflix.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just leave out big events.
With all that money they have, I think you and I both, to beat a dead horse again, but we were disappointed by last season. I hope they kind of step their game up with how they can portray the 2022 season well.
Oh, yeah, I hope so, too. They've also come out, the makers of Drive to Survive, have also released this week Drive to Survive, but tennis. It's called Breaking Point.
Yes.
I've yet to watch it. I'm not going to lie. I've been very tempted to, but I feel like we need to watch it together to report back. And if I become a tennis fan after watching this entire series, then Netflix, literally, you need to make documentaries on every sport on the face of the planet.
They need to start NHL next.
Yeah.
It's my vote.
They're literally going to get everybody and their mom into, like, different sports just because of these series. But we will watch it and report back to all of you. Okay, I will watch it and report back.
I don't have an interest in that, if I'm honest. I like watching tennis. I love watching Federer and Nadal, but like I don't like it that much.
But you never know, okay? There were so many people who weren't racing fans and watched Drive to Survive because it was COVID and they had watched everything else and they watched Tiger King 45 times already. And they have now become hardcore F1 fans that are spending thousands of dollars on race tickets. Just think about that.
Yeah.
So you never know. So we are people.
Keep an open mind.
I'm going to force Matt to watch it with me, and we will report back.
Sounds good.
Okay. Last thing, racing related, like on track related.
Okay.
Formula E.
Yep.
This
first
week,
weekend. Yep.
We have a form of racing back in our lives this week.
Yes, we do.
And it's exciting. I'm not going to lie, and I'm kind of upset. We haven't had a chance to watch. We had guests this weekend that don't necessarily aren't fans of cars.
No.
So I wasn't going to subject them to that possible pain. But we will watch. We did watch some highlights.
Sure, yeah.
Let's talk about Andretti just coming out of the gates hot.
That's right, P1 and P4.
Yeah.
I'm hype.
It's really exciting to see. Obviously, Andretti and Cadillac are put their bid in to become a Formula One team.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that a lot of the reaction to that announcement and the reaction from Formula One team principals saying we don't want you was just fueling the fire for them going into this.
It's just great for them to just show, like, look, all we do is succeed. They do succeed. They are very good in pretty much every form of racing they enter. So, to all the F1 teams out there that are worried about how well they'll do, they have a pretty good track record.
Yeah, I feel like it was a big old middle finger to Formula One. They were like, oh, we're not worth Formula One. Watch us go and just wreck this now.
Yep. Almost 2 podiums. They were close.
They were so close. And it was definitely doable. But they were racing in Mexico City. And I do have to say, from the clips we saw, great crowd.
Yes.
At Formula E. We have watched a couple of Formula E races last year live. And crowd, not so great. You didn't necessarily hear cheering. You didn't see stands full of people. You saw people in stands, but not full. And we all know how big the Mexico City track is, the massive stands, and especially the stands at the popular, oh my God, it's escaping me right now, but the major chicane that kind of goes through the grandstands.
Oh, yeah.
It was full.
Yeah.
It was full, which is really exciting.
Right.
I know we were talking about going to the race in New York that they have. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it makes me really happy to see.
Actually, I forgot to mention this to you earlier, but they do not have the race in New York this year. I remembered reading this once, but their only race in the United States this year is Portland. Portland, Oregon, which, for those of you out there who know the state of Portland, that's a rough city to race in.
Why would you go to Portland over New York?
I am on the same page as you.
Formula E, come on.
I know.
Okay.
It's upsetting.
Well, I guess we won't be going. Maybe we'll go to one. No, we can't.
I don't know.
If you are in Portland, Oregon, or in other places in the world, we highly encourage you to attend a race, but we also highly encourage you to watch. It is literally, it's a different style of racing.
Yeah.
But it shares a lot of similarities when it comes to Formula One, in many different ways. But I think my favorite thing about it is, like, if you're a Formula One fan, like, the start of the race is, like, one of the most exciting parts of the race, obviously. The cars are so close together, right next to each other, fighting for positions. I feel like Formula E racing is that, but, like, 90% of the race.
Yeah. And they'll bump into each other. They don't care.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like
there's contact,
cars.
like they're because it's not open wheel racing, right?
Right.
So because the wheels are closed in, there's a little bit more protection. You can get away with a little bit of shoving here and there, and it makes it. I that might make me sound kind of NASCAR-y, but I think you can't deny that that's entertaining to see cars kind of bump into each other. They're not like smoking each other, punting everybody off the track,
no.
but there's contact. There's way more contact than there is in F1, and it's really interesting racing. And also the sounds are the most unique sounds.
So futuristic.
It's so spaceshipy. That's such a good way to put it.
I'm coining that term. Spaceshipy.
That is exactly what it sounds like, though.
I love it.
Very interesting. But they do have 2 races in Rome. Maybe
we were just there.
Why can't we go back?
Oh my God. Again, we'll report back on this. But we encourage you to watch. It's really exciting racing. The cars are also a new generation of car this year. And I have to say, they look
amazing.
Mean.
They look incredible.
Oh my God. They look so scary. And like I said, they look like flying arrows.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yep. And there are some really great racers, drivers in this series.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we're seeing a lot of people make transitions from Formula E to Formula One. Nick DeVries. And it's becoming, I think it's going to become more and more popular as we start to see that. We're seeing some F2 drivers also make the transition to Formula E. So it's not like there are these no-name drivers out there.
I think it'll be, if there isn't an 11th team, either way, if there is or isn't an 11th team added to F1, I think the very talented young drivers that kind of not age out, but kind of evolve and get past F2, I think moving to Formula E is a great way to stay relevant, race very competitively, but keep your your aura around F1 and
Yes.
to keep that chance alive to be able to get an open seat.
Yeah, and we see a lot of Formula E racers also become reserve drivers for other teams in Formula One, and there are Formula One teams involved in Formula E. So it is like, like I said, they share a lot of similarities, some crossovers. Anyways, long story short, go watch it. It's very good racing, and we highly encourage you.
Yeah.
Let's go into our last segment of today, my favorite segment. It's our little driver's corner situation, because I love getting into the personal lives of Formula One drivers, and I know you don't so much, but I feel like it is my responsibility to inform you on these things.
Okay.
Lewis Hamilton,
What about him?
still in Antarctica.
Still in Antarctica. Okay.
He is literally still in Antarctica with Shaun White and the Penguins.
I did see that video of him running with the Penguins. That was actually kind of funny.
Yeah, he was like, nothing better than a run with penguins. And I was like, Lewis, stop. Like, this is literally like the biggest rich boy thing you could ever post. Like, I'm on vacation on my private yacht in Antarctica.
But isn't he also like trying to push Extreme E, which is like kind of against those kinds of
He traveled by boat.
morals? By boat?
Snowboards don't use gas. I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know how they got there. It looks like they're on some sort of boat. But he's still in Antarctica living his best life with his buddy, the Flying Tomato. I just am curious to be like, what made you pick Antarctica? Like, why?
I thought it was Extreme E based because they were doing a race in Antarctica, supposed to like bring awareness to melting ice caps and.
No, sir.
No, well, it
He's
shows
just
you how
in
little I know.
Antarctica.
Okay.
Speaking of ice caps,
Yes.
Charles Leclerc, he's climbing them.
Is he?
Yes, the man has been cross-country skiing and ice climbing this
Okay.
past week and a half.
I bet you Ferrari is like terrified of this news. I mean, Charles, stop. We need you to drive.
I remember him doing this last year because I remember he posted just a couple photos of his like ice climbing, and everyone was losing their absolute minds over it. Well, I think he made a little mental note in his head because the boy has been posting nonstop of his ice climbing, and they're pretty amazing shots. I'm not gonna lie, he looks pretty badass.
If I were Ferrari, I would be telling him, no, you can't do that.
Well, these men, they love to push it to the limits and extreme, and he's doing that.
They are extreme. That is for sure.
Yeah, they are extreme. That is for sure. Pierre Gasly, he's been doing his typical thirst trap posting, but he was racing some go-karts this weekend,
Oh, nice.
which was great to see. I'm trying to see who else. Lando Norris, he's training also in the Arctic.
Strangely.
Okay, not in the somewhere cold.
Okay.
It looks very cold. But he's been out there. He has said he has started his training.
Nice.
Carlos Sainz also doing some cross-country skiing. What is with all these Formula One drivers and this like cross-country Arctic adventure stuff?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Cross-country skiing sounds terrible.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah. Like, downhill skiing is cool.
Right.
But cross-country skiing it's like what you do when you're trying to get to the ski lift.
Yeah, I don't.
But for like hours.
Right. It sounds painful and horrible.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that.
But they're all doing it. So I'm confused.
Maybe it's good exercise.
I don't know. Apparently these guys really like to vacation in the snow on their off season.
Well, they probably all live in some tropical island anyway, right? So
Monaco's too warm for them.
yeah, exactly.
They all need to do that. Last but not least,
Okay.
Fernando Alonso I have seen him make just a really big effort on his social media during this off season, okay? But I saw him make this post this week and I was like, this is probably not great. He posted a picture with him and the notorious Fabio Briatore.
I don't know who that is.
Think of him as F1's villain.
Okay.
He is literally a little sneaky snake. He is behind the big F1 crash scandal.
Oh no, the crash gate.
Yes.
With Fernando.
Yes.
Ah.
He has been known. He actually is a known criminal.
Okay.
In other countries, basically the man is shady. He's shady.
Sure.
And
Fernando probably should not be.
No.
Fraternizing.
If you're already known as like the Lord of Darkness to some people, I think
this isn't helping.
No, you should really be posting pictures with puppies.
Or charity, or
your girlfriend, wife.
Yeah.
Spending time in the community.
Yeah.
Putting in the hard work and working out and training. Not posting a picture with a known criminal.
Now, I mean, are there people like freaking out about what's going to happen this year now? They're like, oh, dear God, Crashgate 2.0 with...
No, because he has been Fernando's manager for a very long time. He's also the manager to other very well-known Formula One drivers and all that. And
he's a known criminal.
Yeah, maybe we should do an episode on this now that I'm talking about this. But
okay.
Guys, there's so much backstory. There's so much interweb weaving. Just Google the man's name. All right, Fabio Briatore. I'm probably butchering that. But just check it out. It is like the underworld of Formula One. And his name is attached to like everything shady that's gone on. He's like 1 degree Kevin Bacon removed.
Okay.
So I just saw him.
Not someone to be hanging out with.
Yeah, not someone I would really post on my social media because, Fernando, he just really needs to look a little better, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's very talented as a human. Don't think he's so great.
Yeah.
I really don't. So that's all I have to report on my F1 reportings on personal life.
Into the drivers' lives.
Into the drivers' lives.
Is that what we should call it?
I don't know.
Into the drivers' lives?
Into the drivers' lives. Sounds very official.
It does.
Sounds like some like Dateline NBC segment.
Into the drivers' lives.
I'll have you say it just like that every time. That's all we got for you this week. We are very close to the F1 season. High five. Very excited. I can't believe it's almost going to be February, March. So I'm sure we'll have plenty more news to report on that. But in the meantime, you can follow us at Mr. and Mrs. F1 Pod on all social media, TikTok, Instagram. This full podcast in video format is on YouTube also for you to enjoy. If you want to look at us and listen to us at the same time, you can. I'm already going to apologize for the hot mess of the video that this show's going to be. If you were on our TikTok live, we were on TikTok live for the beginning of this podcast. We are trying a new way of recording audio and video together, and there were lots of little hiccups along the way.
Yeah, growing pains. We'll figure it out, though. We got it.
We'll figure it out. We're getting, in the off season, we figured it's a good time to experiment with these things. So apologize for the video already, but we hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
And we're releasing episodes every single Monday, so make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single one.
Sounds good.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.